Hello, I'm Tony and today we are going totally batty with bats, or Bloodsucker Anti-Terror Squad, a game free from Prime Gaming until I think 22nd of March 2023. This is a new but old school side-scrolling platforming beat-em-up where you take the role of a vampire looking to rescue your squad from an evil organisation that has batnapped and imprisoned them in one of 5 levels, oddly made up of platforms overrun with undead. What this all boils down to is running and jumping around the levels, hitting enemies, jumping over hazards and running away from huge saw blades. You know, day-to-day stuff. Despite the actually rather blocky pixely graphics, this game does bring more to the table than some of its old counterparts. First off is blood. I don't mean the blood that seems to be dripping off the walls, or the blood that spurts out of enemies. That's there, but what I'm talking about is the blood that your enemies drop, or that you can collect in the form of giant, short-lived drops. This counts as your life, or your hit points. But interestingly, it's also used for certain abilities, forcing you to choose between dashing or saving that life to absorb a hit. Filling that health bar also activates a special ability in most of the characters, such as turning into a fast, deadly wolf, which is a bit of a two-edged sword, because it drains your health bar while you're in that form, leaving you vulnerable once it runs out. It also feels a little odd to have a dodge effect ability that isn't going to be there when you're at your lowest health, like when you really need it, or which, when you use it, could leave you vulnerable to a one-hit kill, which pretty much led me to not use it. There are other skills that some of the other characters have that give you a far more useful nuke type ability at the cost of some of the life, but not all of it, which is far more interesting and potentially more useful in my opinion. I did say other characters because once you rescue the rest of your squad, you can then play as them, each, as I said, with their own special ability, and some that are definitely stronger than the others. The Blade tribute, for example, deals much more damage than the Dracula ripoff, the Dracula homage. Another character has a shotgun, which provides a very different playstyle to most of the other characters. You also don't have to stick to any particular character for a run. You can choose a different one for each level. So it might be that some levels really suit one character above another, and you have the option to choose. There are, of course, boss battles, but I can only really comment on 2 out of the 5 for reasons I'll mention in a bit. The 2 I saw were fine. I had a couple of mechanics each that needed to be learnt, but they weren't too hard. There is no difficulty level selection, so for once I wasn't playing on easy. Speaking of difficulty though, I found the first level really easy, once I'd gotten used to the controls, and then hitting the second level felt like a big jump in difficulty. But you know what? It turned out not to be that big a jump after a bit of practice. It is harder, don't get me wrong, but it's more discovering the instant death you'll face before you get some blood that makes it feel so daunting at first. Once you give it a bit of practice, you should be good. The game is very fast paced, except for a few times when it suddenly slowed down for no apparent reason, before then returning back to normal for no reason. I've seen someone else mention this online, so I believe it's more the game than my specific system. Unless it happens just when you really need to keep your timing, it probably isn't going to ruin your run, but it's not ideal. If it does hit when it's important though, you really will notice the lack of checkpoints. Each level is divided up into a few sub-levels, and dying anywhere on each sub-level puts you back at the beginning of that sub-level. None of them are particularly or overly long, but a couple have enough tricky timing sections that I sighed when I died. I also want to talk about the reason that I only saw 2 bosses. And I do this even though it's kind of embarrassing. On the 3rd level, one of the later sub-levels has a section where you need to kind of multi-jump up a series of those breakable ceilings to avoid rising acid. And I couldn't do it. Now, this might be old man brain. It's perfectly possible to do it. I've seen someone do it on a YouTube video, although they did not explain how it's done. And the game hasn't told me either. So I'm kind of stuck. What makes it even worse is that you have basically one jump to get it right before you die in this section. And then you've got a really overlong, unskippable cutscene when you restart. That adds like 15 seconds to your restart. So you don't really get any kind of practice here. I kind of ended up getting demotivated from even trying to figure this out. If there was a section that had something similar earlier on, I could go practice there, but there kind of isn't. It's such a shame. I was actually really enjoying the game up until that point. It was challenging without feeling impossible. It was quick to reward skillful play, but also punish poor play. And it was a good game. I'm at least halfway through the 3rd level, as far as I can tell. And it kind of takes me about 25 minutes to get back to that point from the beginning. So, given that I've played less than 2 hours to get to this point, I don't think it's a particularly long individual playthrough. However, that is without trying to get through a run with all of the different characters. I've unlocked them all, but I've not tried a run yet. And there's also a speedrun option that I've not given a try, both of which should really extend your playtime if you are enjoying the game. Overall, I felt this was fun. This is a decent game that was spoiled specifically for me because of my inability to do that particular move that wasn't taught to me. Clearly other people can do it. Your mileage may vary on this one. Might be absolutely fine for you, no problem, you don't know why I can't do it. Since it was such a good experience up until that point, my advice for those who do like this genre of games is to give it a try. This is a recommend from me with the obvious provisos that I've already mentioned. Okay, well, this game has drained me mentally and social embarrassmently, if that's the thing. So thanks for watching, and I'll talk to you soon. Goodbye.